Welcome to Fast Keto. I'm your host, Ketogenic Girl. Hey guys, welcome to this week's special episode of the Fast Keto podcast. This is a special holiday episode, and I wanted to do one episode as my gift to you where I just take all of your burning questions, and it's a great time for it. We're going into 2019 in like 2 days. It's going to be next year, and a lot of us are gearing up for getting back into keto or trying keto for the first time. I've gotten so many questions about sort of getting back on the keto wagon, so I posted for anyone to send in their questions, and this episode is just going to be listener questions. I've done this format once before and everyone seemed to really enjoy it. Got a lot of great feedback on it. I recommend you check out my 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. What it is a full 28-day meal plan and program that includes all the recipes and foods that you need to eat for 28 days. I call it the 28-day challenge because it's just a great way to get past all the information overwhelm. There's so much information online about keto, and this way you can just get past that. All the macros are calculated for you to get into a state of ketosis, and I was able to do that by using tried and true proven macro approaches that I've developed over several years of doing the keto diet and working with over 3,000 people to date on this program. Our Ketogenic Girl community in the members group is incredible. Everyone in there is so supportive, providing helpful tips and hints and sharing their successes and struggles and challenges as well in the group together, because we're all in this together gaining more health. The 20-day challenge program comes with weekly shopping lists, meal plan overviews, a guide to testing yourself and interpreting the results for keto, and it also comes with my support and coaching in our members only group. So go check it out at ketogenicgirl.com. It's the 28-day challenge, and any purchase of the 20-day meal plans gets you access into the challenge. You can choose to get the program either soft copy or with a printed copy as well. It's printed on beautiful paper, spiral bound, and I ship it out to you the same day. So go check it out, the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge at ketogenicgirl.com. A few disclaimers. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice, as I am not a qualified healthcare provider. The information presented on this podcast is for educational purposes only. Ketogenic Girl is not qualified to provide medical advice. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to this podcast. Prior to beginning a ketogenic diet, you should undergo a full health screening with your physician to confirm that a keto diet is suitable for you and to rule out any conditions or contraindications that may pose risks or that are incompatible with the ketogenic diet. A keto diet may or may not be appropriate for you if you have any kind of health condition, whether known to you or unknown. So you must consult your physician to find this out. Anyone under the age of 18 should consult with their physician and their parents or legal guardian. I brought my portable microphone with me, and I'm here podcasting at my parents' in-laws home here in Denver, Colorado, and it's a beautiful day. I'm sitting in the sun here enjoying a nice coffee with some almond coconut creamer in it, and it is delicious. We just had lunch and had some bone broth too. My husband's feeling a little under the weather, and I'm sure it is somewhat connected to all the holiday indulging that we've done. And so we were cooking up some bone broth here today, and there's nothing more nutritious than that. And I have some kettle and fire bone broth here that was waiting for me because we didn't ship it over to Prague. So I was pretty excited to dig into it. We just had the chicken and mushroom one for lunch, and I loved it. They had little bits of mushroom in it, and it was delicious. I absolutely love mushroom, and I really, really enjoyed that. And it's a nice, nourishing, wholesome lunch. It's going to help my hubby feel a lot better with all that amazing collagen and gelatin in there. So back to your questions. This is, as I said, my special holiday episode right before the New Year's. I'm going to do another special holiday episode next week, which is going to be about goals in 2019. But today, it's just my gift to you, just taking any questions that you have and answering them to the best of my ability. So I'm going to pull some of the questions that we received or that I received here on Instagram, and that's where I posted the stories there. I'm going to pull these out and see. All right. So the first question is from Petra. I love my green vegetables and I believe they're healthy, but I know they're carbs. I hear a lot of confusion about counting vegetable carbs. Can leafy greens and broccoli type cruciferous vegetables keep you out of ketosis? That's a great question, Petra. Now, on keto, you really, as you know, have sort of an allowance every day for how many carbs you can take in that day. And you could take that in, say you're doing under 20 grams. I always count total carbs, so I don't subtract the fiber from them. I always count total carbs, and you could sort of have that however you like. If you like to have a sweet potato or a potato that day, you can have that. But in general, that's going to take up your entire carb quota for the whole day. So I don't really consider things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, breads, most fruit, high carb dense foods like nut butters and things. They're not really the best for keto. And I tend to not think of them as keto foods, because what's the point of just having one potato when you could have, tons and tons of leafy green vegetables, tons of kale, tons of salad, broccoli, cauliflower, avocado, olives. There are so many low starch vegetables, and I would much rather have tons of those nutrients coming in from all those leafy greens. There's really a rule for me with keto is if it's a green veggie, you'll do great with it. You'll do fine with it. It's really hard to overconsume green veggies. I mean, unless you're having, just a massive bowl of salad that's, the size of several basketballs or something. If you're just really overdoing it, you're eating, 3 or 4 heads of broccoli or something. You might need to worry about that. But in general, I don't worry about the green veggies on keto at all. They're so nutrient dense. It's really hard to overeat them. And, they do have a lot of great fiber in there as well. So it just depends on what you prefer. If you're not really a big fan of green vegetables, then you just have to be more careful. If you're really trying to get into a state of ketosis, there are other vegetables that can keep people out of ketosis, things like sweet potato, a lot of those root vegetables, a lot of those really starchy vegetables. And the reason for that is higher starch vegetables are vegetables and fruits that have stored sugar. So in our bodies, we have sugar stored in the form of glycogen, and they're chains of glucose put together. And we store that in the liver and our muscles to be broken down into glucose when we need it, especially when our brain needs it. So plants do the same thing in a way, and they store chains of sugars together. And instead of it being called glycogen, they're called starches. And so a high starch plant food is a plant food that has a ton of stored sugars in it. And that's why it's not ideal for keto, because when you get into a state of ketosis, you're burning ketones as a part of breaking down fat. And in order to do that, you have to empty out your own glycogen stores. And so the most efficient way of doing that is by keeping starches controlled and keeping your intake of high starch plant foods low. And if you are taking in a lot of high starch plant foods, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you're going to be using all of those sugars for energy. You're going to be using all of that starch for energy, and you won't ever use your own stored fat. So it's not that there's anything wrong with these foods. It's just that it all depends on what you want to use it as fuel. If you want to be in a state of ketosis using your own body fat for fuel, if you want to be burning ketones, generating ketones in your body, that means you have to be able to break down your own fat, and you have to get into that catabolic state, and you have to do that by lowering glycogen. So you want to avoid the high starch plant foods. In my free ebook, which you can get at Ketogenic Girl, if you go to ketogenicgirl.com, I'll put the link in the show notes. If you click on the menu and go to free ebook, I have a free ebook there that has a list of the lowest starch vegetables. If that's something that you like, also has tips on quitting sugar or putting sweeteners in there, how to gradually reduce carbs over time, how to control starches in order to become a fat-fueled machine, burning more fat by prioritizing protein and healthy fats, reducing inflammatory foods to heal, how to stock your keto pantry, all the info about optional ketone testing. There's so much in there in the free ebook. I really encourage you to download it and check it out because it's a great resource. And as I said, it's got a lot of info that'll answer some of your most common questions. I tried to answer some of the questions that I get the most often. So that's a great question there from Petra. And don't fear the green veggies. They really are the lowest in starch. Everything from avocados to salad greens, kale, broccoli. I consider cauliflower kind of a green veggie because it has green leaves on it and it's white. So kind of gets in there. But asparagus, spinach, all those foods, you really don't have to worry about them too much unless you're really eating massive, massive amounts of it. So the next question comes to us from C. Tiff Keto. And she wants to know all about hair loss and hair breakage on keto, all the things. So one thing with hair, it really usually has to do with protein intake. And that's why I really love adding in collagen and gelatin to my coffee. Or I used to do a lot of bone broth. I still do sometimes, when I'm in the mood for having a cup of bone broth. And I mentioned that a little bit in the intro too. And I really love using kettle and fire bone broth. But for day to day, I like to add collagen and gelatin into my coffee. And I have found that to make a huge difference. I've also been upping my protein intake. And I find that a lot of times hair loss can be related to protein intake not being high enough. It can also be related to caloric intake not being high enough, but I find that most often it's the protein. And I recently went to see a new hairdresser when I was in Denver, and she had never, done my hair before. And she was doing my highlights, and she's like, "Wow, you really are blessed with such thick natural hair." And I was like, "I've never heard that in my life." I thought she was joking. And she's like, "No, your roots are extremely thick." And I know that that's all since I started really supplementing on a daily basis with gelatin and collagen and upping my protein intake, which I started doing last spring. And it's made a huge difference in my hair and nails. So you can definitely try that out. Some people experience temporary hair loss and other things like changes in their period frequency or duration of their cycle. And that happens with any change in diet and exercise. It's not just a keto thing. It happens anytime someone makes a major shift, like one going from a high carb diet you've been doing for 20 or 30 years to doing a low carb diet or keto, for a few months. I mean, you've been doing something a certain way for your entire life and suddenly you're doing it differently. And, it's no surprise that the body is going to have some shifts and changes in there. So you can definitely try that out and let me know how that goes. So our next question is here. What's the most consecutive days you've been in ketosis and what are the main benefits? Mine is 6 weeks as I enjoy a cheat meal. What do you like to do? So I've been in ketosis for about 4 years. I don't really go out of it just because I really like being in a state of ketosis in terms of what I get for consistent, stable moods, energy. I love being fat-fueled, being a fat burner. I love having high ketones circulating for the positive effects it has on my brain, my mental clarity, on mitochondrial biogenesis. For so many reasons, I love being in a state of ketosis. For me, every day on keto really feels like a cheat meal because the food is so rich, it's so delicious, it's so decadent, it's so nourishing. I have never felt less deprived in my entire life doing any kind of diet or lifestyle. So I really find that most days feel like a cheat day for me on keto. And if I feel like having something, I'll make a keto version of it. If I am craving chocolate, I'll have 100% dark chocolate. If I'm craving cheesecake, I'll make a keto cheesecake or a keto pie or dessert or a pudding or, my Viennese coffee with whipped cream, or I'll do just some whipped cream keto sundae with some dark chocolate. and heavy whipping cream and some slivered almonds. So there's so many incredible healthy treats that you can make out there if you are looking for a cheat meal. That's how I like to do things, but I'm an abstainer. I find that in general, I just do better not having sugar and cheat meals and carbs. I found that when I used to have cheat days, I remember many years ago, I tried a program where there was a cheat day every Saturday, and I thought about that cheat day all week. I mean, I thought about what I was going to have, how many I was going to have. I focused and obsessed about that one day. And that was because I felt deprived during the week. I wasn't feeling nourished and satisfied like I do on keto. I've never felt more nourished, more satisfied, and more free from all these kinds of food cravings and obsessive thoughts around food and that kind of thing. So I don't really, personally, cheat meals and things don't work for me. If it works for you, then there's no judgment or anything for me whatsoever. You got to find what's going to work for you and make it long-term and sustainable, because the diet and the exercise program that works in the end is the one that works for you long-term, that is sustainable. So, for you, if that means having a cheat meal every 6 weeks so that you can do keto the rest of the time, then, go for it. I don't think that there's any damage to going in and out of ketosis over 6 weeks. I would just worry about people who are doing it on a weekly basis. I don't think it's really a great idea to be doing cheat meals and kind of obsessing about food, fixating on food. The whole point of keto to me is being free from thoughts about food and that kind of having that food freedom. So that's why I don't really encourage, cheat days. I really don't want people to be food focused and obsessing about that one cheat day or that one cheat meal and that kind of thing. And I really think that, keto, if it's done well, it should feel like a cheat day every day, because there's so many healthy, decadent, enjoyable fats. And it really can feel like a cheat day every day if you want it to. Hey guys, just taking a really quick break to talk about the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. If you're interested in doing a ketogenic diet for yourself, it's a great place to start. I teach you everything about how to follow a keto diet to get yourself into nutritional ketosis, and it includes 28 days of meal plans. It comes with weekly shopping lists, how to interpret results, how to test yourself, a complete guide to getting started on keto. If you've been keto for a while and you're just not getting the results that you want to in terms of your health or fat loss, or you are brand new to keto, the 28-day challenge is a great option because it also comes with my free coaching and support in our members Facebook group, and you can post any questions that you have about the meal plans, about keto, and I am there supporting you. We have an amazing community in our group because everybody in there is so excited about following keto, about having found something that really works well for them. And everyone in there is just so kind, caring, generous, and supportive. And it's a really fun place to be and hang out. So if you like more info on it, you can find it at ketogenicgirl.com. And it's the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. And now back to our interview. Alrighty, so on to our next question. I got another question about hair loss and breakage, and I do see that question quite often, so I did answer that one. If you want to, you probably already heard the answer to it, and if that was your question as well. So I think that was from Kathy. Kathy asked that question as well. Some people can also try doing higher carb days. I find that it really, more often than anything, like I said, has to do with protein intake not being adequate enough. So supplementing with collagen, gelatin, or just having more protein. JM Brown 727, after doing keto for 7 months, I'm now seeing fasted blood glucose on waking of 110, 125. Now, this is possible for a number of different reasons. It's generally referred to as the dawn phenomenon. And if your blood work is getting worse and not better, you definitely want to tweak something and change things up. At the beginning, there can be an adjustment period, but if you're doing something for 7 months and you're seeing that your blood sugar is going higher, it could be related to stress or cortisol, but it could be that you're also taking in too much energy overall. So keto is a high energy diet when you look at it from a high fat perspective. It's high in healthy fats, but some people are overdoing the energy intake from carb and from fat together, and that doesn't help heal insulin resistance. If you really want to restore insulin sensitivity, then you need to be controlling the starches, number one, making sure you get adequate protein, prioritizing protein. And on the fat side, eating healthy fats to satiety and not overdoing it with the fats, because if you're trying to help your body restore homeostasis, you don't want to be just overfilling it with energy. So sometimes it can be eating too much fat, and you could try doing that and seeing if it helps with your fasted blood glucose in the morning. Generally, on keto, you want to see your fasted blood glucose or your hemoglobin A1C coming down, getting lower. And if it isn't going lower, it could be related to stress, but it could also be that there's just too much energy coming in from too much carb, too much fat. And so you might want to just try either lowering your carbs or lowering your fat and seeing if that makes a difference. That would be the number one thing that I would tweak. And you can always raise protein. Sometimes people get kicked out of ketosis or get higher blood sugar from having higher protein, but it's really rare. It's really hard to overeat protein. It's really easy to overeat carbs and overeat fat. So that's the answer to that question. Alrighty, so many great questions here today. This one is from High Fat Hot Mess. That's a hilarious name. How can I hit my fat goals while not going over my protein? Really struggling with this. So I kind of think I know what you're talking about, but I wouldn't worry so much about hitting your fat goals. If you have fat on your body, if you are not undernourished, then your body has fat it can access to get into ketosis and to make ketones. And generally, that's what we want, is to be fat fueled. So you want to make sure you're prioritizing protein. It's really hard to overeat protein. I wouldn't worry about going over your protein so much. I would worry more about overeating fat, overeating carb, and not worrying about getting to a certain fat goal, because as long as you are controlling starches and you're not overeating fat, your body will still be doing a ketogenic diet. It'll still be getting 70 to 80% of its dietary requirements, but it'll be from your own stored fat. It won't be from fat that you're eating. So you want to eat healthy fats. You want to make sure that you're getting your essential fatty acid needs met, your essential amino acid needs met, but you don't need to be eating over 100 grams, over 200 grams of fat like I see sometimes people doing. Really just use it to add flavor and satiety to your meals, but don't worry about hitting certain fats and don't worry so much about overdoing protein. It's really about controlling the starches and carbs if you want to get into ketosis. And I'm sure you'll do quite well if you do that. You can send me a follow-up question if you like. Laura Neves, how do you know if you're overdoing it on your fat intake? Sometimes I feel like I eat enough, I'm full, but then I find myself scrounging for carbs or something sweet, even if it's keto. So generally hunger, physical hunger, can happen if you're actually hungry, if you need to eat. If you're finding yourself hungry after you've eaten enough energy, enough calories, enough protein, enough fat, enough, carb for the day, depending on your macros, and you're still finding yourself hungry, it can be that something that you're eating at a mealtime is spiking your insulin or your blood glucose and it's going too high. And that means it's coming down too fast as well. And that's when people get hungry, is when their blood glucose comes down too rapidly. So for some people, if they're really sensitive to protein, it could be that they just ate too much protein at one sitting. And so you want to break it up more. And so you're not having, say your entire day's protein at one meal. It can be that your body's overreacting to that and it's spiking glucose. But for the most part, things that tend to spike glucose are carbs, are refined things, are hidden sweeteners. Those things perpetuate cravings. And I quit sweeteners over 1.5 years ago because I wanted to eliminate cravings, and it made the biggest difference for me. Having carb cravings is not a good idea. I mean, having sweeteners is not a good idea if you're looking to reduce cravings. And so I would really make sure that if you are having cravings, you're experiencing cravings and you're experiencing kind of like phantom hunger kind of thing, it can be from sweeteners. It can be the type of sweetener that you're using, and it can be that you're eating too much at one sitting, and so your blood sugar is going up and down. You can measure your postprandial blood sugar and see what it does. If you're interested in that, you can test your blood sugar half an hour, 2 hours after a meal and see if it raises more than 20 points or 30 points. It might be going up too quickly and coming down too fast. If you are just in the habit of having something sweet after a meal, that's easy to do. Just have a keto treat and, don't feel deprived ever. You should never feel deprived on keto. So I would make sure that you have some kind of keto treat. Your question about, are you overdoing it on your fat intake? You really, with fat, if you're doing keto for fat loss or weight loss, you really want to use the minimum effective dose. So eat enough fat to add flavor, to add a lot of deliciousness to your meals and satisfaction, but make sure that you're prioritizing protein, and just don't add fat for adding fat's sake or for hitting certain macros, because you need to do that more at the beginning when your body needs to generate fat burning enzymes, which are lipases. And you need to shift your body from being a sugar burner into being a fat burner. And eating a lot of fat at the beginning helps. But if you are doing keto just for fat loss or weight loss, and just for feeling consistent energy, for being fat fueled, for having all the benefits of having ketones circulating and all of that, then you really don't need to hit certain fat amounts. And the way to know is just based on your results, on, how you feel overall, and if you're getting and seeing the results that you want to see from it. So that's, one way to sort of figure that out. And, you just play around with different things, journal, track things, and see, how you do overall. And you'll notice, patterns and correlations. Next question is from VRO. How does keto affect your menstrual cycle? So it depends on the person. For people who have PCOS or diabetes of the ovaries, keto, if it's done well, provides a lot of precursors to healthy hormones, and that's in the form of steroids that are known as cholesterol in the body. So we get a lot of cholesterol from eating eggs and healthy fats. Our body is able to make a lot of its own cholesterol, and those are the precursors for the sex hormones in the body. So I always like to say the body's hyper intelligent. If we just give it the right building blocks and get out of the way, it knows what to do. It'll take it from there. And so that's why a lot of women see a lot of normalization, regulation of their cycles, of their, they go from being irregular to being more regular. They often, improve symptoms of PCOS or heal PCOS. And there's a lot of hormonal related conditions, Hashimoto's, thyroid related conditions that can be really alleviated just by eating whole foods, cutting out sugar and gluten, which can trigger antibodies, having a lot of healthy bone broth and collagen, which can help repair the gut lining so you don't have leaky gut and antibodies developing from that in the body. So there's so many reasons why keto helps with hormones and can help with autoimmune conditions, and it helps, lower your insulin resistance, so you're more insulin sensitive, and that can help with the hormone function as well. But it really depends on the person, and people react differently. So you just want to, work with a qualified physician, functional therapist, keto doctor, someone who understands, how insulin resistance and hormones are connected, and how important it is to have high insulin sensitivity in the body for our best overall health, for our best hormonal health, our best metabolic health. Is all connected, because our hormones really are signaling mechanisms and information being communicated in the body. They're really messengers being sent. And in order for those messengers to be sent, the body has to have what it needs in order to make the messengers. And then in some cases, it also needs to make the little vessels that carry those messengers through the blood so they get to the right organs, so they get to the right cells in your body. And in order to have all those things, it needs really good high quality protein and all the essential amino acids, all the essential fats, omega-3 fats, so that our body can really assemble all those proteins, assemble all those lipoprotein vehicles that shuttle those signals around in the body, and just help us to function as optimally as we can. It's really by just giving our body the best possible food and taking away the things that interfere with all that signaling that cause insulin resistance, sugar, gluten, overeating, inflammatory oils, fast food, all these things, and just going back to eating real whole foods as much as possible. All those things really add up and make a huge, huge difference. We got so many great questions today. I'm probably going to have to do a second round of this. A lot of questions I got were about quitting sugar, quitting sweeteners. I mentioned that in the beginning. Check out my free ebook on that. I have a guide to quitting sugar. Linda asked about keto carnivore. How do you figure out the macros for this? So basically, you just cut out all the carbs and you just eat protein and fat when you're hungry, and you stop eating it when you're full. That's pretty much how people do keto carnivore, and then just play around with different amounts there and see what you need and how you feel on it. You really just have to figure it out for yourself by trying different things and figuring out the macros. When you go carnivore, for the most part, it's really hard to overeat food in general because you're not being enticed by all these flavorings, flavor enhancers, food enhancers, salt, all these different ingredients that make food hyper appetizing. And because you're not being manipulated by all these different things like MSG and sugar and gluten and all the things that stimulate our appetites and make us want to eat more, you're just more in tune with what your body actually needs. So if you just feed yourself when you're hungry, focus on really quality proteins like really nourishing salmon, grass-fed beef, adding in liver where you can, focusing on all the healthiest protein, lots of healthy eggs, and you'll find that you get full really fast and it's really hard to overeat because you're not being triggered by all these things that make us overeat. Carbs and fat tend to be foods that make us overeat more. But when you focus more on just eating protein and fat, it's really hard to overeat. And so you don't really need to figure out the macros. You kind of just eat when you're hungry, you stop when you're full, and you can track as you go, and you'll see that your macros pretty much end up being keto. And you're also probably tapping into some of your own body fat burning as well. And because of that, you're going to most likely be in a ketogenic state as long as you're not really, really overeating. If you're really sedentary, you shouldn't be eating tons and tons of meat and protein and fat. If you're more active, you can get away with more. So you can try different amounts and see how you do on that. We'll be back in a moment, but I just want to take a moment to say something about collagen. I received a lot of questions from you guys about collagen ever since I started posting my Level Up lattes where I add collagen to coffee. The only real drawback to bone broth, where you get so much great collagen, it's one of the reasons that bone broth has become so popular in the last few years, is you get this great collagen from it, but it's a real hassle to make. Now, for any of you who don't know, collagen is a special protein that your body uses to repair itself, whether you're getting it to straighten out digestive problems, help your mood, soothe achy joints, repair and support your gut lining if you have leaky gut, or just get that glow back in your skin. Collagen is a huge piece of the puzzle. The problem is that most of us get very little of it from our diet unless we're making bone broth around the clock. Now, maybe you're using a collagen-based skin cream or you're adding collagen to your coffee like I do. That's better than getting none at all. But one of my biggest beliefs is that food beats supplements. The closer a nutrient is to nature, as you know, the easier it is for your body to break it down. That translates into superior healing. That's why I want to tell you about this bone broth from Kettle and Fire. They simmer grass-fed bones for 10 to 20 hours, extracting every drop of body-loving collagen straight from its most natural source. Their beef bone broth contains 20 grams of collagen per carton, and their chicken broth has 10. No wonder they have over 10,000 5-star reviews. The only real drawback, as I said, is making bone broth is a pain to make, but that's not going to be a problem for you because order from Kettle and Fire, they ship their broth straight to your door in specially sealed cartons. That way you can heat it up on your stove, sip it in your mug, or load up on collagen in 5 minutes or less. It's the next best thing to having a chef come in your house and cook it for you. Kettle and Fire has put together a very special offer for my listeners who want to experience the bone broth difference. You can go to kettleandfire.com. That's KETTLE ketogenic girl and use the code ketogenic girl in all caps for 15% off. The coupon code is automatically applied when you buy through this link, which I will put in the show notes. Nahidash, does your blood sugar go higher when you start keto? Generally, from what I know, it shouldn't. It should go lower. So I'm not sure what that would be related to, unless it's related to hormonal response from stress and cortisol. So if you're stressing yourself out trying to do keto and you're really stressing about your macros and you're really stressing and you're not sleeping well and you're really worried about doing it wrong, you might be overstressing your body. That can cause blood sugar to be higher. But in general, most people don't measure their blood sugar until they start doing keto. So sometimes they think it's high, but it's actually lower than what it was before. And people will sometimes be astonished at how high their blood sugar actually was. So you can always go and have a hemoglobin A1C test done, which tests the last 3 months. And then you can see what your blood sugar was before and then compare it to now. So you really want to avoid stressing it out. Just focus on eating real food. You've been eating a certain way for so long. You have many years ahead of you to restore your health, to restore homeostasis. Don't push it. Don't push your body too hard. You want to do it with love, do it with patience, and, make these changes in ways that complement, your overall health by not stressing yourself out. And that's a really important point. I find that it's really helpful to do yoga, walking, meditation, and things that help us be more mindful, things that are calming. And you can also supplement with GABA and different supplements that help with, calming yourself if it is stress related. Here's a great question. Oh, here's another stress related question. H Key Mom 314, mastering stress to bust through weight plateau. So it's a great question because we can get out of fat burning if we are too stressed out, as I just mentioned. The book, The Untethered Soul, has been one of the best books I've read in a while, as well as the original one that I first read about 20 years ago, The Power of Now. They're all about being more mindful of our thoughts. And I find that stress is just fear, and fear is just a lot of scary thoughts that we're having, and we're having them without being conscious or mindful of what's going on. And so meditation brings more mindfulness into your daily activities, and that helps you realize what you're focusing on and what your thoughts are. And your thoughts are what make you feel a certain way. So, they're all connected, and you can figure out next time you become more mindful. If you're not feeling great, you might be more aware of it. You might be more conscious of it. And then you might go, what am I focusing on right now that's making me feel this way? Oh, I had that thought about that weird email I got, or that bill that's due. And, that's what kind of threw me. And you become conscious of it, and you can kind of just release that negative energy from it and make a plan, to face whatever it is that's bothering you, and then just release it and let it go. So meditation daily, even if it's for 5 minutes, can be so, so helpful. Kathia has another question. Leg cramps at night. I take magnesium, potassium supplements, and eat table salt for sodium. I drink at least 10 ounces of water daily, and you still get leg cramps at night. You'd really have to ask a doctor about this. I'm really not qualified in any way to answer, questions about electrolytes. But sometimes if you're drinking too much water, you could be diluting the electrolytes. Usually leg cramps do come from lack of electrolytes. It may be that either you're doing too much exercise and you're not keeping up enough with the electrolyte demand, or you could be drinking too much water to the point where you're diluting all the extra electrolytes you're taking. You could not be eating the right foods and getting enough electrolytes from them. Beef, salmon, avocado, they're all great sources of potassium. So maybe try to get them more from your food sources than from supplements. But I would really recommend speaking with a low carb or keto doctor, asking them. There's so many great ones you can ask on social media. And there's some really great ones in our community. So many great questions that I received here today. I think I've been able to answer most of them. Getting off of Diet Coke, I first made the switch by using, those erythritol-based sodas instead. And my husband also used those and replaced them. And then eventually I just went over to just sparkling water with some lemon and I'll do that, or just sparkling water now. So it's just about having something to replace whatever it is with temporarily. And then after a while, you might find that you don't really need it anymore, especially as you do more work kind of on being mindful and, just overall on your state. You might find that you feel better. So you don't really need to distract yourself or entertain yourself with, some kind of food or drink, which, I know that's what I was doing a lot of the time before. Got some more questions here I put out. So, do calories matter by K Prego 3? Calories absolutely do matter. It's just that when you are on keto, you are also healing a lot of hormonal signaling. And so it's really the two together. It's calories as well as the hormonal or endocrine theory of weight loss that work together. And so we lower our insulin, we lower our stored glycogen by following a ketogenic diet, by lowering sugar. But if you're eating a lot more energy than you are burning every day, then it will be difficult for your body to burn fat. So if you focus on eating a lot of really healthy protein, eating fat to satiety, and getting all of that in, those macros also have thermogenic effects. So you end up burning calories when you're eating it, especially protein. I think it has a 25 to 30% thermic effect of food, which I learned from Maria Emmerich and from the Lean Gains founder. And that protein is going to have less calories because you have to burn some of it in order just to break it down into amino acids. So calories do matter, but just realize that with keto, there's also a lot of other things that are coming into play, like correction of hormonal signaling, which helps the body burn fat. Restoring insulin sensitivity helps the body burn fat and tap into that. And becoming a fat burner helps you burn fat. But you just don't want to overeat calories and just, it's never a free for all where you just can eat as much as you want if you're not keeping up with that activity wise. So Danny Daily 88, I'm an ER nurse and I work night shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 3 days a week. I'm struggling with the intermittent fasting. Your question was cut off, but I think I have most of it here. So I really admire you, first of all, for being an ER nurse. I really admire all nurses. I really admire all doctors, care providers, and anyone who does shift work, because it's very difficult work to be out of sync with your circadian rhythms. You can still do intermittent fasting. Just do it while you're working if it helps for you. The main points with intermittent fasting is enabling your body to fast at some point during the day so that you can get into the post-absorptive state where glucagon dominates instead of insulin, and you go into a fat-burning state instead of a fat storage state. And so you can do that at different times during the day, or you can just not eat between your meals. Don't snack between your meals so that you can go into the post-absorptive state. You usually go into that state about 3 to 4 hours after you eat a meal. So if you're snacking all the time between meals, you never go into that post-absorptive state where you're breaking down fatty acids for energy and you're getting into ketosis. But you can have your meals, say, at 12 and then 12 hours apart, or 10 hours apart, or 5 hours apart, or whatever it is that works for you around your schedule. As long as you're fasting while you sleep, you're not getting up in the middle of the night to eat, and you're fast for, say, 3 to 4 hours, either between dinner and when you go to bed, between your last meal and when you go to bed, or between when you wake up and your first meal. Those are the easiest times to add a little bit of intermittent fasting into your sleep so that you can really tap into that fat burning in the post-absorptive state while you're sleeping or between meals, and not snacking between meals. So you really prioritize getting all the best, most nourishing food at your meals so that you don't have to snack or feel the urge to snack in between your meals. And that's really major, is just a lot of cravings and hunger come from not getting enough nutrition, enough nutrients at our meals. Lori Perez asks how to get back on track with keto. I say just remember how far you've come and keto on. To me, there's no getting on track, falling off track, this and that. It's just, are you eating real food most of the time? Have you cut out sugar most of the time? Gluten, carbs, are you doing these things predominantly? Have these become more a habit than not? Then you're doing great. Don't beat up on yourself for, a couple days a year that work out to, 1 or 2% of your total year. Or if you had, a wild weekend, where you ate a lot. I heard sometime, just count it as a metabolic boosting day and move on. You ate maybe more calories on a certain day. And so you revved your metabolism higher on that day. Just the most important thing is focus on the big changes that you've made so far, the changes that you're continuing to make, and not beating up on yourself for getting off track, because that can contribute to, really getting off track. Just being loving with yourself and realizing that you're not perfect. You don't have to be perfect all the time, but most of the time you're doing the best that you can and you're gaining health. And, it took us so many decades to get where we are, and it's not going to all be reversed with one day or two or a weekend off. You still have to live. You still have to be able to sometimes, get off track. And keto's always there for you. Keto to me is just eating real food and reducing our dependence on sugar and gluten and on having to eat all the time, because our blood sugar is going up and down all throughout the day. So I hope that answered your question. I tried to answer as many questions as I could. I'm going to answer one last one here. I just got in from Jimmy Papik. He asks, surfing, heavy weights, swimming. I'm 47. I'm having a hard time gaining weight on keto. I would say that probably has to do with your protein intake. You probably could do with a higher protein intake, especially if you're that active. If you're trying to build muscle, you need to have a higher protein intake in order to replenish those muscle fibers to build stronger muscle as you break it down through all of that weight-bearing activity. And you'll probably see higher weight gain and more muscle gains and lean gains and bone mass density gain as well from eating higher protein. And you can supplement that with gelatin and collagen in your coffee and just eating more protein. And don't worry about getting kicked out of ketosis, because most of the time it's from eating too much carb, too many starches, and it really isn't the protein. So I hope that answered a lot of your questions. I tried to answer as many as I could. This is kind of a speed episode, but I hope you got a lot out of it. And it is my holiday gift to you. If you are interested in trying out keto for yourself, have me as your buddy and your guide. Try out the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. You can find out all the info at www.ketogenicgirl.com. And you can check out the 28-day challenge. I just released my brand new phase 2 meal plans, which are my higher protein meal plans. And you can check those out if you're interested. Try the challenge. There's no time limit on it. You can join it anytime. And I am there to be your buddy and your guide for any questions that come up as you're trying out keto, or maybe you've been doing it for a little while on your own and you just want to change things up, try something new, do it with a supportive community and with having me there to answer and support you as questions arise and as you're, trying out different things. So check out the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge at ketogenicgirl.com. And until the next episode, until next year, I hope you have a fat-fueled rest of your year.